So I've just done the video talk about these lock-up houses and sort of all around the subject of the fact that they shape like and represent the Celtic roundhouses and also the top of the clog teach. And the fact that they appeared sort of around the 1300s to actually lock people up and when people have been naughty. So it's actually putting a bad image or a naughty image on the the Celts and the clog teach, really. I mean, it could have had any design, it could have been square, because obviously they'd had Roman buildings by that time. And I've basically talked about that in the other video, this bad image sort of given to the previous religion and culture, anything that's associated, like I put on the village stocks, because I've done another video on the recumbent stone circles, and but my last video talked about all that and the connection between it. Now, after we've gone through that period of which I've talked about, the 1300s, 1500s, that's around the time we've got the Robin Hood. A lot of people are interested in Robin Hood and to do with what it means, and Rob in Gaelic means there was something, and Rob is, as you read it off the paper, it looks like a robe, like you have a hood and a robe. I suspect that after the Romans pulled out, and then when there's this, because of all the Druids weren't completely eradicated, and there was a bit of a resurgence of that culture, but then it started to merge into the Christianity. There was a bit of a resurgence through this Arthurian period, the Anglo-Saxon period of the previous religions. But then when in the Norman conquest, we've got another stronger wave of Christianity, which is then going to, it's something to do with the sacrament. It's something to do with the religious sacrament, because that's why the clog teaches that form. Its form is like the sacrament. The Celtic roundhouse, cone on the knot, is that shape as well. There's something to do with the church and eradicating the use of the sacrament or wanting to only have it symbolic. Obviously, they have it. The shape of it now is in a lot of church buildings, the form of it, but they don't actually use it. So it's stopping them from using it. Now, something to do with the Robin Hood legend, particularly all the evidence I've given about our area. I've just read some other people doing some reports on the Robin Hood legend and all the other different sources of the legend, and it's not confirmed that it actually was an actual real person, because there are different reports that aren't all factual. Now, that stone at Hartshead is not even meant to be real, so it turns out that Earl of Huntingdon was one of the Scottish lords or something. Well, that Scotland really is where the resistance was from the Romans coming over, right on the tops of Scotland. I think that there's something to do, the Robin Hood myth is very, very much associated with something to do with the previous religion and previous Celtic cultures, and that thing, that whole bit, and something to do with you've got praying to pray, but then you've got praying with an animal and bows, it's then later on Friday gets put into the story. I know that this is only a really, really basic sort of discussion. I don't even want to go into academic evaluations and going through every single account and facts, because there are other people who have been going through every single account and every single fact and putting the conclusions together from meticulously studying the material, and they still have come to the conclusions that they don't exactly know what the story is anyway. So you might as well just, if there's any ideological evidence in there, and I think there is, and that's what I'm there for, because they can't prove any of the facts and any of the people were real, all we really have got is the ideological evidence anyway. And the fact that Robin Hood we know that he was made an outlaw or outlawed, I think that it's got something to do with them trying to stop the use of the sacrament, the liberties, and any other sacrament, and the religion just taking on the symbology of it only, and it becoming a theory-based religion. And it's something to do with the rebels, so to say, the leftovers of, the Druids and the ancient Gaelic peoples, and their kind of history and legacy. And then what I've shown in the other previous video to this one is that, they were given a bad name. Now if you've been collecting the sacrament and using it, and it's been outlawed or banned, or the church don't want to use it anymore, then you're naughty, aren't you? Then why have they got the clog teach and the Celtic roundhouse and the naughty lockup house? That's what I think. I've just got this gut feeling about it, and this sort of. I know that it's there's a lot of people who are very sceptical and doubtful, but given the words and the terms from the previous cultures, and then knowing what's happened, and so with this video, what I actually wanted to do is just follow on from the last one when I went through all the different things actual things that have been made to look bad or given a bad reputation or name or a bad function when it's associated with the past Celtic culture, right? And then, so when we continue from all that period is sort of, from 1066 going through that sort of Robin Hood period and the 1400s. Now, where I want to start the next bit to continue indicating and pointing out further things that support that. In the 1700s, so in the late 1700s, we're talking to our area now. This is in relation to the Petition and our area. So that Meltham Chap, Dunelm, next to the edge of the Pennines at Meltham, which was actually called Marsham on the old maps. Marsham Chap. That is actually an area of high density of liberties. And that's where they ended up choosing. They could have chose absolutely anywhere. They decided they wanted to put a reservoir there, right? In the late 1700s. So that's where, and they dug up all that beautiful prime cultivation field area, not exactly alongside it because that was on a downhill slope, but the bit next to it, they really ruined and spoiled that site, and they put the reservoir there, and there could have been a lot of archaeological history there. It's just a religious site, because I think there's evidence in my other videos that the long barrows, the large natural form long barrows, are what the smaller long barrows are symbolically based on. All around the coast and the country, the small long barrows. Although, the longer form did evolve from the other cairns, the rounder cairns, but being only primarily a British thing of the British Isles, the longer barrows, they're definitely based on and symbolised of the natural barrows. And I think that because that one at the Brigantes one at Huddersfield, because we've got Castle Hill, which is a big long barrow shape to dwell on top of with a village, and then Meltham Chap could have been, likely is, and then you've got Warrior's Tomb, which is another hill fort, was actually liberty shaped, and then that sort of ties into that Robin Hood's grave thing in our area. I actually think that Meltham Chap was attacked first, and they rubbished that and dug that reservoir there to basically attack it because they knew it was a religious site and an important site of the Brigantes, right? So that was the first. Obviously, De Lacy carved up Castle Hill after the Norman conquest. He carved up Castle Hill into 3 pieces and messed it around, right? And then it ended up having a medieval village on it in the well. So Castle Hill sort of has been messed up, but it still is there. Then, so I want to draw on from the 1700s. I actually think, you see Robin Hood's hat is sort of like the shape of Castle Hill as well. The shape that De Lacy put into it just before we go into the 11, 12 and 1200s, around that Robin Hood legend time, when the biococket hat is symbolised, it's following on from De Lacy, what De Lacy did. Now that sort of ties into giving a bad name to, Robin Hood's been outlawed, and the outlawing of it, that would connect that whole, why is that Robin Hood's grave there? Why did they say Robin Hood shot an arrow to a burial? And then you've got Castle Hill's like a bow, the bow of Castle Hill pointing at Warrior's Tomb burial. It's nothing to do with the other Robin Hood legends. And then all of the historians are saying that, well, that stone at Hart's Head is fake and the Earl of Huntingdon had nothing to do with it. But it has got something to do if you start bringing this sacrament into it. If you start thinking of everything, all right, well, what are these lockups for? Why are they being naughty? Why do they want to symbolise the clog teach shape, the top of the clog teach or the Celtic roundhouses, which is cone and a knot, which is liberty shape anyway, and being naughty and bad, and being outlawed, something outlawed, particularly when Christianity, religion came in, and it was the previous Druid culture that was outlawed with the use of sacraments. So this is what I think it is really actually all about, actually, the whole thing. It's all about this, and this is why you have, then you've even got Protestants versus Catholics, and you've got all this other stuff, which is mainly more distraction from it, and then you've got, different Roundheads and Royalists, Cromwell, even boots the Royals out completely. It's over power and control of the country and raising armies and all this, so... And that's what those lockups were for, when they brought in the early constabulary and the police. They got constable is a long-established position. Apparently, they said they had constables in the Anglo-Saxon period. But so these are the things that I'm going to point out anyway. So we've got that. They built the reservoir, and they could have built it anywhere, but they banged it, and then they started having a dig into the side. They spoiled that Meltham chap. It's not totally spoiled, but it's actually not that much of it, but a bit of it is being all dug into and a bit of the cultivation land side of it. So there's that. And then we go into, then when we go into the 1800s, the thing what was happening in the 1800s is when people were travelling around a lot because of the train and they could travel quicker and faster and carry things more. This is when we get, going into the 1800s is when you get a lot of people and photography appears and people start taking photos of things and passing them around. That's when you get all these people who are suddenly interested in all the ancient sites, and then they start picking at them and opening them up and digging at them, they're picking at them. And this is when a lot of the, the Scotland, Scilly Isles and Ireland, a lot of the sites get vandalised and spoiled and rubbish. They get them dug up. They say they're looking for gold, but really what's valuable is it's the ancestors' bones, because it's almost like Cromwell, when Cromwell, they went, what did they do? They went and dug his bones up and dragged him around, didn't they? They had to make a point out of it. They really wanted to do that, even though he was dead, but it was symbolistic, ritualistic, dragging him around, it wasn't enough that he was already dead. They had to go and, pick him to bits and pull him around, even though he was already dead. And whatever else can you do when he's already dead? You got to destroy the name. These people, they have to destroy the name. And they had to destroy, the Cromwell, the symbol of it, and I'm not saying Cromwell's popular with the Irish because he meant they were doing a lot of bad things in Ireland, but he certainly ain't popular with the Royals either. Do you know what I mean? Now, this is why I don't really like the whole school of archaeology, how archaeologists are being educated, their opinion is being formed by the university and college, and they're being, oh no, we have to be destructive and this or that, well, yeah, it's a tomb, why don't they go, why don't they pull up more modern tombs? Just because it's written on it, it tells you what it is and who it is and when it was laid there. It's got the information on it, you don't go pick at them. Really, the meaning of a lot of the older burials is the shape of it and the symbology of it and the shape of it is what it means, on the carvings and that. But obviously we can't read them, because it was supposed to tell you what it is. You're not supposed to go pick it to pieces, because it's might be except for the ones that are being cremated, but there was a lot that weren't cremated, And apparently, once they start opening up those tombs, they claim they're looking for gold, but then actually what they ended up is throwing all the bits of bones and bodies around everywhere outside. They actually just chucked them about and moved them about. A lot of it was tampered with. You see that DNA and those bones are actually easily contaminated. And what's valuable to anyone? The ancestors. So they weren't valuable to the people who were looking for gold. Opened them up, picked them about, and just strewn them around everywhere. You see, that's what they did to Cromwell's bones. Now, the thing is, what's valuable in anything? Now some activist groups like, Black Lives Matter are wanting to take statues down or whatever, and the government are trying to protect them. They've got a police force protecting them. So it's something valuable. It's valuable to the government. It means something, value is not always in silver or gold or in pound notes, the history and knowledge and things like that are valuable. But, when those cairns got opened up and thrown around, it clearly weren't valuable to the people who opened them up and chucked them about. Who were these people who went over it? So around the 1800s was a time when a lot of these ancient sites and monuments to that previous culture got spoiled and ruined. Now, so we've had Meltham Chap's been rubbished and built on. Castle Hill got done earlier than that. We don't actually know what happened to the Warriors' Tomb and to end up with those trees around it. Now, 1900, just before 1900, I'm not going to talk about John William Ramsden on all of the... even the name Ramsden, now I'm thinking about Ramsden was just coming up to before 1900, and then I'm thinking about in the 1800s, they were picking up all them cairns to bits. It is Ramsden, isn't it? Ram in a den. So, 1900 is when they banged that tower, and this is the most controversial point now, because this is what really divides the locals, puts a big division mark in the locals here, because when they bang that tower on there, it becomes a salute and celebration manifested right on that hill, and then people are just like, at that point, the tower becomes the focal point, and not the landscape and the wider area, not the focus of the Warriors' Tomb, the focus of Meltham Chap, all it's almost like in that Tolkien story, you've got that Sauron Tower, that eye, where's it focusing in on? Everyone then is kind of focused and mesmerised on the tower, and now, here, very vehemently, defending it, which, if that's what floats your boat, if that what floats your boat, then fair enough. But, I'm bothered about, facts and history. And I'm not looking at evidence like, forensic evidence or this or that. We're talking about, events of what did happen. Well, I don't need to... This is evidence because we know what happened. There was a reservoir built. We know what day it was built. But it's, by who and why. Well, by who and why? Why anything? Why... who does it mean? What does it symbolise? What might it symbolise? What's been going on? What does it all add up to? What I'm saying is, they had those lockups and then built them like, in the other video, they had those lockups, they built them like the roundhouses, and they associated them with being naughty and bad. Right? So they wanted to associate with being bad. Now, once that tower gets put on there, then you don't have the attention and focus on the Warriors' Tomb or on Meltham Chap either. It's all on that tower. In fact, now people are obsessed with taking photographs of it. Wildly obsessed with taking photographs of it. They've even got British Royal Legion adverts on TV now at the moment, and they put a barrier around that tower actually a couple of days ago. They're claiming it's got some structural fault or something or whatever. I don't know, but someone. A dowser was saying that apparently exactly where that tower's built, there might have been some religious site there before it on that hill fort. There might have been like a cairn or a mound or something like that, because in a lot of the other hill forts and sites you find cairns or mounds and things like that on them. I don't know what it was, but a guy, he definitely says there was something actually at that spot on there previously. And we don't know what was there before De Lacy channeled it out and dug it out and then that medieval well got put on there. We don't exactly know what was on there anyway. So when that Victoria Tower gets put there, what the effects are now is that really, and I find this myself, even now, being someone interested in the history of the hill fort before that tower, no one's really interested in it. No one actually now really cares about it. And that they're even trying to put cafes on there and God knows what. It's sort of off limits. You know, the locals really don't like to even. They're not bothered. And even that Warriors Tomb, people were interested in that Warriors Tomb place. They built a tram station out to it. You know, that C.J. Hobkirk were writing books about it. It was of interest at some point. And Castle Hill. And now it's not, because it was visual access has been blocked off, it's been disregarded. Visual access has been blocked off, it's been disregarded. They don't even want to acknowledge Meltham Chap for being anything but a natural feature. So, you know, and then, you know, we've got Emily Malmas put there. The whole Tolkien thing as well is really important, but they're in the movie videos. Now, so we get a lot of these Irish places, the cairns, not just in Ireland, in the Scilly Isles, Cornwall, and some in Scotland, get opened up, claiming looking for gold, yet when we know the actual valuable thing in them is the archaeology themselves, and even the remains of people, to an extent where, you know, even when somebody's dead and died, you know, clearly the evidence of digging up Cromwell and dragging his bones around, surely is that not that, you know, if they really want to finish people off and any memory of them and symbology or whatever, then you dig the bones up and chuck them around everywhere. Is that not evidence? It was done. So, and then the next thing, they get the, you know, Cromwell's not popular with the Irish either. Because apparently he went and did a lot of bad over in Ireland, but then he wasn't popular with the royals. So, you know, who is he popular with? Now, we get the First World War, don't we? After 1900. All the other things in the other videos that I've done about, you know, the Gundestrup Cauldron being found and all those other things like that, I've already covered that in other videos, so I don't really want to go over that part again. You know, the Book of Kells mysteriously gets taken over to London, it goes missing, and then it finds out that it was actually one of the people who was there looking after it who took it over. You know, and what happens in the First World War, and in the Second World War as well, is we actually lose other countries' royalty. We actually get the loss of the actual Russian, the Russian royalty actually end up abdicating, don't they? And actually the German as well. So we've got these other competing royal establishments actually are removed. Leaving ours as the main one, because America doesn't have a royalty, does it? America's got the Declaration of Independence. They have a president. They don't have royalty. But the other major competing royal families are, you know, they're disestablished, aren't they? Now, what I think is significant is the IRA seem to pop up and come on the scene. Because actually they're all soldiers, aren't they? A lot of them are ex-soldiers, so they're already trained. Now, they've actually got, you know, they've got a dispute, but it seems to me that what happens with the IRA is that it seems to give the Irish further bad reputation with the English. The resulting effects in England, in Britain, are that what it actually does is it gives the Irish a bad name in Northern Ireland, and people don't want to go over there. People don't want to visit the sites and see all these places because it's dangerous, you know, and the public are scared of it over there because of all these troubles or whatever. But these soldiers, a lot of them apparently were meant to be trained, because of the war or whatever. That's how they exist. So their connections to the army, it makes you wonder who's giving the orders from where and to who to get them to do it. Leading someone up the path. It's like putting a carrot in front of a donkey. It's all a bit. They claim they've got a legitimate cause. But what the effects of that cause end up not actually resulting in a further good reputation. You see, now at that point, after 1900, we've got this Victoria Tower on this important site around the way. We've got all these 3 sites which are connected to the religious past and religious centre and major tribe, and then we've got all this previous rubbishing of that culture, which I've said before, like the lockups, the village stocks and all that symbolic. The thing is that the IRA then continue, because I can remember lots of IRA things going on all through the late 1970s and even early 1980s. I can remember it being on TV. So from that point on, from this point here, when that kicks off, that kind of permanently put the Irish in bad repute and made people wary of going over there. And that's where a lot of these main best preserved ancient sites are, obviously in Scotland as well. But, they don't have a Newgrange in Scotland, do they? They've got a lot of sites around the coast and things like that. And those Isles are skilly ones. I didn't even know about those, People used to advertise going on holiday to Jersey, but they never used to. It wasn't, going to Skilly to see the ancient sites. Apparently, some of them haven't even been opened there yet. They're still protected. So it's the whole. I'm choosing the IRA generally as then an established and ongoing long-term factor where we can. What can be used for further reason to not like or to give a bad repute to that whole entire peoples, and their sites generally. Even though apparently Mountbatten's wrote books about Irish sites and claimed to be interested in them in that, but yet they'd pulled them all to bits and pull all everything had been scattered and pulled about, So by various random historians, going or claim to be prospectors looking for gold. This is all general, by the way. I'm not saying like specific. If you don't agree with this, then fair enough. But now, also the thing with the Second World, then we get the Second World War as well, right? Now the thing with the Second World War is we get these gas chambers, right? And yeah, it's nothing to do with the Irish. They're claiming it's the Jews, right? And they don't like the Jews. But the thing with the gas chamber is, right? So so we get the German monarchy abdicate, and and the Russian monarchy, are gone as well. So which leaves without America or Australia, having separate monarchies, we've got the British one is the most powerful one. So, well, are there any other ones really that you know about? Not in the West, not in the European Western world, really. Only small countries that aren't really, you don't really consider them, not anything like Russia or Germany. And France has a president as well now, Thing with the Second World War, then, when we get to here, is that we get this gas chamber thing, right? And this is where I want to go on to these gas chambers, right? Because I haven't really seen the gas chambers properly. So these are the inside of the gas chambers, right? And we all were sort of taught about them. They told that we've all seen Schindler's List. If you want to watch that Schindler's List movie, they all were told they were going for a shower or whatever, but they went and gassed them all. Now, what strikes me is that the inside of these, they call it a chamber. Now, we refer to the cairns as chambered cairns of that previous culture, So, the thing what happens with the Germans having the gas chambers is that it is putting that bad name and reputation in towards something that's a chamber, right? Now, the thing is, a lot of the Celtic and ancient sites have got chambers. This is the Grand Dolmen of Bagneux, which is meant to be a really, really big one. I don't know if it's the biggest. It's a very, very big chamber, if it's legit. Apparently it's meant to be legitimate, but this is all built up around it now. It does have even the term the gas chambers, you know. And this is France, this is Gaul. This is where the Germans occupied France, you know. The Gallic part of France, it's associating chambers with being bad again. And I think there's a strong connection with the chambers and a bad thing about it, trying to put, because it's making it really not just bad but plain evil, you know. Now, this is what the outside of that looks like. It would have been covered, it would have had a mound around it, I think. Even the size of that chamber, look at the size of that in there. It's just very similar size to this room, isn't it, you know? Similar dimensions inside. Now, the thing is, I hadn't even really seen what these German gas chambers look like, but if you look at them, it's got this court shape in front of it. Look at it. That is the shape of, like the Bella Snap and like the court cairns they have in Ireland. You know, this is literally like the front of Newgrange design. You know, it is like, look at that from the side. Now that's just like Bella Snap. Obviously Bella Snap's longer, but it's like the cairn shape, and I think it's meant to be like that, intimidating. Now we know from history that the Romans didn't get into Germany. You know, the Germans fought them off, the tribes. What I don't like about this design is it's got the tower on the side of it that is square. You know, they could have had a round tower or made it bigger, but they've done a square one. It's like the Jubilee Tower, isn't it? It looks like the Jubilee Tower, doesn't it? Look at that. In fact, it's almost like a hill as well, like with the grass there, almost like having the tower on the hill. It's almost like, it does look a bit like the Jubilee Tower and Castle, but then you've also got this Irish and, well, not just Ireland, you've got Wayland Smithy, there's West Kennet Longborough, Bella Snap, Newgrange, whatever, all of them, all the ones on the islands. So it's now Germany aren't that well known for them. They do have some of their own, but so this is actually a death place, right? Dying. So it's really putting that, the design of it and the whole idea is really adding more of a bad name and attack on that. Why design it like that? They had the Bauhaus, they had this and that in Germany. Why not design it like some sort of, totally futuristic place? They've got it like the ancient site style. Everyone should know that. I mean, so the thing is, that is kind of like putting, when I said that these put the bad name on the, the Clog Teach, because this is now a naughty lockup place. This is a naughty lockup place, right? This is not the Celtic Roundhouse villages of the people or the Clog Teach. It's for naughty people. So, now it's death and murder associated with these, chambers. And this is actually inside one of the German, this is like an incinerator for bodies, Now, the thing is, a lot of the ancient burial sites, right? Like the African ones and the Algerian ones, and a lot of the ones that aren't chambered are just covered over by a mound, right? There's some discrepancy from which actually are chambers and cairns, which are the ones where, there were cremations and people actually... I find it hard to believe, this is what we're talking about now, I find it hard to believe that you would bother cremating people, then putting them in those burials, in the ancient burials, because, like, once you've cremated someone, what's the point? I mean, the whole point of breaking something down to powder, to ash, is so it can be recycled into the wind, into nature, into the soil, become one with the land again, and the molecules of existence, the molecules of God. You're breaking it back down, recycling it, and it's all emerging back into the fabric of. That's the whole point of it. It seems pointless to cremate something to put it in there, and if you were, once you've done that, you've kind of destroyed the essence of what it is and its identity. Even if you put them in urns and pile the urns in there, it just seems, it defeats the object. Now, if you were putting the bones in there and preserving the bones to protect the bones, then that's different, because it's actual bones and you've got something to study, something that's got, DNA or memories or form to it, even the shape of the skull, to study the shape of the skulls and protect the ancestors. It's something valuable, your ancestors' bones. You would want to build something around it to protect it. Now, some of these sites, there were temples, because they've got light shining into them, they've got ceremonies associated with them, and rituals. Not every structure is a burial, a tomb. Some of the structures are, religious sites. Some of them are, like Stonehenge is a religious site, although that's an outdoor one. But the recumbent circles are religious sites, for following the moon's movements. Some of these structures were for religious ceremonies. Now, what we've said is, with the Robin Hood story and things like that, the whole point of the Roman invasion was to wipe out the Druids and the knowledge and history of that culture. And then that's what Christianity further did. That's why I think there's some interesting things with Robin Hood, there was, and this whole, our area, which is, an area where there's a lot of high frequency of sacrament where you can go pick it and seasonal, and there's hill forts and sites being very close to it. The warrior's tomb is actually shaped like Liberty shape. There's something, it makes you think, what are these wars all really about? So I'm very concerned about the design and style of this, and no one even talks about that. I don't know what the Irish say about it, if they don't talk about think of it, because it's mainly Jewish people. But, you don't hear people saying, and I think you're within your rights to say this, the design and shape of it is very concerning, And the thing with the the thing with the Germans is this, right? You see, you had this. We've got this thing where we don't have the German royal family anymore, and we don't have the Russian royal family anymore, and we don't have the French royal family anymore. We've only got the British royal family, and America and Australia, which are pretty big countries, don't have the royal family because they're meant to be under Her Majesty's Commonwealth. So we've got this. What we're left with is this one major royal family, aren't we? Now, the thing is, to do with the war is this mount. Actually, with this Victoria Tower at night, around just before 1900, I covered in my other videos. We've got these Mountbattens marrying into the English family. So you've got these Mountbattens, merge or join the Mountbattens marrying the English royals. So you could say there's a unity, right? So it seems interesting that after there's Mountbatten merging with the British royal family, that then we end up having two wars and the other royals are removed, and then they're just left with one. And then what happens in the Second World War is, you're getting this rubbishing of symbology in Gaul and in Ireland of the sites, which it's following a pattern. It's following a pattern of this, bad, naughty, it's bad, and it all seems to me to gravitate around this illegalisation of the liberties and sacrament and controversy over religion. Although now we've got people studying it like Dennis McKenna, people like that, Royal Imperial College, but we're not allowed to because it's illegal. Only licensed people can, I don't like it, and the fact of the fact that what annoys me most myself is I'm not Jewish. My granddad was in the war, but I'm not Jewish, and I wasn't alive during the war. What